The Jacksonville Jaguars have just franchise tagged Evan Engram. Wow, this is a bombshell of an announcement. Good evening, everyone. I am your host, that Jaguar guy, and today I am going to be going over this announcement, talking about what this means for the future of the Jacksonville Jaguars, what this means for the next season, etc., etc. I'm just going to be doing a deep dive into this franchise tag because on paper, it might just seem like a normal franchise tag, but if you really dive deep into it, you can see where this is actually a very big deal revolving the Jacksonville Jaguars. Initial thoughts, I'm just happy to have him back for one more season. I mean, even if he gets to continue to develop Trevor Lawrence, or help with the development of Trevor Lawrence, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth right now, but my initial reaction is I'm very happy that we get to keep Evan Engram for at least a season, and I'll get to why I also think this is a good decision in a minute. So I'm just going to hop right into this and talk about what a franchise tag is. So according to NBCSports.com, a franchise tag is a designation that allows the NFL teams to select one player set to be an unrestricted free agent and guarantees another year under contract if certain conditions are met. Each team receives one franchise tag per year and can be applied as either exclusive or non-exclusive. So it's basically a one-year deal, and it also says that teams must offer the selected player a one-year contract no less than either the average of the top 5 salaries at the player's position based on April of the current year or 120% of the player's previous year's salary. Now that is for an exclusive franchise tag, which is what Evan Engram got. So Evan Engram will stay on the Jacksonville Jaguars for at least 1 year, and this is the only franchise tag the Jacksonville Jaguars can use. So they can't tag Jawan Taylor, they can't tag Dwayne Smoot, they cannot tag Arden Key. This is the only franchise tag they get, and I believe they used it on the right player, which is Evan Engram. And he gets the average of the top 5 players at the tight end position. So franchise tag, in my opinion, I disagree with the whole franchise tag system. I think that a team, either you walk or you stay on the team. That's if contract negotiations can't be met, then you walk. If they can, you stay. But in regards to Evan Engram, I love the franchise tag. That's very biased of me, but if I had the choice between, for next year, getting rid of the franchise tag altogether, I would be for it, because I think you shouldn't force a player to stay on a team they don't like. For Engram, it's clear he likes the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'll get to why I think this was best for both parties. Moving on, I'm going to go over Evan Engram's tag, or franchise tag. He gets 1 year deal. He stays on the team for a year. He gets $11.345 million. That is the average of the top 5 tight ends in the league right now. So that's his salary for the next year. And the Jacksonville Jaguars have until July 15th to continue to work out a long-term deal with Evan Engram until the next season. This is why I support this franchise tag. It makes sure that Evan Engram is locked onto the team because he wants to play for Jacksonville. It's very clear. It makes sure that he does get the opportunity to play for Jacksonville, but both sides can continue to work out a long-term deal, which is, I'm hoping that does happen, but I'll get to that again a little bit later. So that's basically what Evan Engram's franchise tag is. Like I said, I agree with franchise tag and Evan Engram. I feel like this is the best scenario. The best scenario is to get out a long-term deal, but if it's a little bit harder than it looks to get a long-term deal, I mean, money talks. And if Evan Engram doesn't think he's getting paid what he should be getting paid, then of course he's not going to sign onto the contract. This gives the Jacksonville Jaguars more time to negotiate with him, and that's always a plus because I want to keep Evan Engram around for a long time. Now let's talk about the future of the Jacksonville Jaguars regarding this franchise tag. So, future involves 3 major things in my opinion. The long-term deal possibility, it affects the draft because a lot of people were saying the Jacksonville Jaguars should go after a tight end in round 1. Now that might be changing, and then also the opportunity of getting a free agency tight end simply because Doug Peterson is really good with the 2 tight end system, and I do think the Jacksonville Jaguars should go after another tight end. So, I'm going to start off with the long-term deal, and I believe a long-term deal should happen with Evan Engram. I think he was a major contributor to Trevor Lawrence's success last season, and I think if Evan Engram remains on the team, Trevor Lawrence and him can continue to build that chemistry, and Lawrence can continue to develop as a passer. And I'd rather keep Evan Engram around instead of gamble in the first round on a tight end. We know what we got with Evan Engram. We know what we're getting ourselves into with Evan Engram. With drafting a tight end in the first round, that's a waste of a first-round pick because you're gambling on a position that we already have a big-time player in. How long do I think the deal should be? I think it should be a 3 to 4 year deal. If you really want to give him a 2-year deal, that's fine, but I'd give him at least 3 years on the team. I'm not the best with salary. I think Engram would get paid $11 million a year anyways without the franchise tag, or 11 to 13 million maybe a year. Who knows? Maybe that's a little cheap, but that's like, what, 40 million, 3-year, $40 million contract maybe, something like that. So I think that could be somewhere in the ballpark. Do I think a deal will happen? Yes, I think a long-term deal will be reached before July 15th. It's stupid of them not to reach a long-term deal with Evan Engram unless they know what they got in their drafted tight end, which I do think is going to happen. Again, I'll get to that a little bit later. Unless whoever they draft, the tight end 2 that they draft in the draft. I know that sounds weird, trust me. Whoever their tight end 2 that they draft turns out to be playing better than Evan Engram, maybe that's when you start considering, alright, do we get this long-term deal worked out? It all depends on what their plan is for the draft, in my opinion. I think a long-term deal could also make it so that Jawan Taylor, Dwayne Smoot, and Arden Key's contracts don't get made. Like, I feel like if we do get a long-term deal with Evan Engram done, then maybe we have to let Jawan walk, which is the price I feel like we have to take. Jawan Taylor's going to be offered way more money, in my opinion, by a team like the Bears, the Falcons, maybe even like the Titans even. I mean, if we really want to go to teams that have a bad offensive line, he's going to get offered a lot of money. He's a young, high-upside player, and do the Jaguars have a lot of cap space, especially after Calvin Ridley came back? No. So it's going to be tough to keep Jawan Smoot and Arden Key around, which is starting to make me believe that they all won't be staying. I already kind of prepared for the worst when it came to them, but yeah, moving on. Drafting a tight end, I still think the Jaguars should go ahead and draft a tight end in this year's draft. There's such a good tight end draft class, in my opinion. Especially after that combine, there was a lot of tight ends I was impressed with. Even someone who I thought I didn't like, I actually started to like a little bit more post-combine. Do I think a tight end should be drafted in round 1? No. I think cornerback or edge rusher should be the move in round 1. I think a tight end could go round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anything below round 2. If I had to bet, they'd take a tight end at round 2 or 3, and I'm still on the Darnell Washington hype train. That combine just enforced that for me. He had a great combine, and if we can snag Darnell Washington, even trade up in round 2 to take Darnell Washington, that is a good move in my opinion. If Darnell Washington goes in round 1, I'm going to be a little skeptical. I still think he's a good player, but if he goes in round 1, I will be a little bit skeptical because there's a lot of other talent available at round 1. Some other tight ends I could see the Jacksonville Jaguars getting, and I wouldn't mind, is Luke Musgrave. I know I've talked an ungodly amount of crap about Luke Musgrave, but he had a very good combine performance, so starting to come around to him a little bit. Sam Laporta is pretty good, and Zach Kuntz had a great combine. Those 3 are other alternatives I can see matching up with Evan Engram very well. So, yeah, I think a tight end should be drafted, and I think it should be Darnell Washington, best case scenario. Is Michael Mayer and Dalton Kincaid good options? Yes, but they're going to be gone after round 1. You got to look at some of the other tight ends who are going to be available possibly at pick 56, or if it's 58, I don't remember, but one of those picks. Now I'm talking about free agency tight end. There are some free agency tight ends that I don't mind. 2 of those being Irv Smith Jr. and Robert Tonyan. I think I spelled Robert Tonyan wrong on the graphic. Nice, good job me, I can spell. But Tonyan. Robert Tonyan. I read something earlier that said Robert Tonyan could be the perfect complementary piece to Evan Engram, and I don't disagree with that. I think he's a bigger tight end. He knows how to block compared to Evan Engram, who's a more speedster tight end, very athletic, and can get open down the field compared to someone who will be more reliant on the short pass game and blocking. Irv Smith Jr., I've talked about him a lot. I like his play. I think he'd be very well on the tight end 2 role, but I don't think the Jacksonville Jaguars will be getting a tight end in free agency. I just don't think they're focused when it comes to free agency on getting a tight end. They're going to be more focused on getting some offensive lineman help, cornerback help, or I can just say secondary help, maybe some help than D-line, maybe even a wide receiver 4 for Trevor Lawrence. Just a lot of other priorities than free agency tight end, especially in a deep tight end class. Getting a free agency tight end is not the best option considering you just tagged Evan Engram. So, with that being said, that's going to do it for today's video. It's just me going over this franchise tag and my thoughts on it. Ending thoughts on it. It's a good decision. I support what Jacksonville's doing. I think it's smart what Jacksonville's doing. But if a long-term deal doesn't get done, at least we get to see one more season with Evan Engram. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.